The region of East Asia is constantly in news for one reason or another reason. It is largely because of the presence of two superpowers of sorts, the Asian giants, one economic power, one political and military power, as well, that is China and Japan, as well as the series of crises that goes on to affect the region. Now, this crisis is going to be the North Korean crisis, the contention in the South China Sea, Taiwan issues within China, etc. And some of these are of recent happenings. Most of these things are of recent happenings. And because they will keep on getting themselves renewed, that's the reason the whole of East Asia is going to be very relevant for this examination, for the civil services preliminary examination, both from the perspective of geography as well as from the perspective of current affairs and international relations as well. Not for this year, but for next year and year after year. This region continues to be significant. It will continue to be important for a variety of regions. One of them is China is, of course, going to be growing economically. And because it is going to be growing economically, there will be new centers that will be coming up in China off and on. For some time back, it may have been Hong Kong. Then it went on to become Canton. Then it went on to become Beijing. Then it is Shanghai, now Guangzhou and whatnot. Anything that is exceptional, that's extraordinary, that happens in China and that happens associated with China, that will go on to spell its effect on the overall economy of the region. That's what exactly the case is in this case. So, we are going to be talking about first is going to be China's economic might, increasing economic might and the developments that will going to take place in China, which will go on to make it very relevant for next year, year after year and so on. Second is China's internal conflicts. They are going to be associated with the Xinjiang region, the Uyghur-Xinjiang basin, some of these issues that are going to be associated with the Yunnan Plateau as well. So there are going to be a good number of economic conflicts which China will go on to suppress. And some of these internal conflicts that may start taking place even in the Kashgar region, maybe in Balochistan, it will go on to affect China, and also in the Gilgit-Baltistan region as also. There is China's economic conflicts. The third is associated with Japan's development. That is, this development is associated with maybe some industrial units, some new ships that are built in Japan, some of the type of alliances that Japan goes on to have. Maybe Japan will go on to invite some of the military powers to patrol its waters in order to protect itself from the Chinese. So that will go on to be bring the whole of the region news. In any case, Japan will go on to be news because Japan is one of the most unfortunate countries if you're going to take a look at it from the perspective of its geology, climatology, meteorology and natural disasters. Imagine any natural disasters and Japan is going to be affected by. So off and on, maybe a tropical cyclone will go to hit Japan. Off and on, there will be a earthquake that will go to affect it, a volcanic activity affect it, not to talk of tsunami. So if any of these type of events going to take place, Japan will come into news. So it's relevant that one should go on to know about all of those issues associated with Japan, all of the places with Japan. Maybe some of these places will go on to get affected in a deleterious manner, in a very harmful manner, and that must go on to prepare the candidates to answer these questions and issues associated with it as well. Fifth is a variety of type of conflicts that are taking place in the whole of the region. Japan doesn't going to be having anything like an internal conflict because it's a nation state. It's not like China, which is a nation, but then there are going to be a lot of conflicts inside China. And same is the case with North Korea, same is the case with South Korea as well, which happen to be more of in nation states. Anywhere where certain type of conflicts are going to be taking place, that is going to be associated with one of them is water conflicts. And when we're going to be talking about water conflicts, we are talking about the control China is going to be having on some of the water bodies, some of these rivers. It has control over Brahmaputra, it has control over Indus, it has control over Mekong River, and a variety of it. China is always going to be in the throes of a water conflict. And anytime if a conflict goes on to brew up, if anytime a conflict goes on to take place, then this conflict will go on to be significant because one or the other rivers is going to be involved in that. That's why the region is significant, and that's why the region is important. There is a seventh region as well, that is South China Sea. South China Sea is always going to be a bone of contention now, because the Chinese will want to control it. The US will want that Chinese shouldn't go to control it. And for one or the other reason, South China Sea will continue to be in the news, either for partly islands, Parcel Islands, because of the 9 dashed lines, because of the type of activities maybe the Americans will go on to do in this region, maybe because Indians going to join this confrontation, maybe because of other countries joining the fray of supporting either China or supporting either United States in this case. Now, moreover, this region has gone to become significant because of Quad, that is QST, quadrilateral dialogue, quadrilateral security dialogue involving India, Japan, Australia and United States. Now, 4 countries with a base coming up in Darwin in Australia, that is essentially to allow the ships of United States and to man the whole of the South China Sea. So the region is going to be significant from one or the other angle. Moreover, the US-China confrontation is always going to be here, and this type of a confrontation is going to be so significant. It is this confrontation that is going to be important, and it is this confrontation that will go on to bring a good number of places in news as well. So the whole of the place is going to be important from the perspective of current affairs as well as from the perspective of geography, and there is no way that there will be a dearth of a question that can possibly be asked from this region. There will be questions and questions and questions that are going to be asked from the region. The entire study of East Asia is going to be sequenced in a definite directional manner. East Asia or Northeast Asia is going to be studied from the perspective of first going towards China, that is from the Pamir region to China. From China it is going towards Japan and Korea and Taiwan. These are the 4 countries that are going to be significant. Now within Chinese region, the most important issue is associated with the orientation of the mountain ranges. And of course, the location of some of those type of ethnic groups like the Uyghurs, which happen to be in the Xinjiang region of China, Xinjiang region of China, whichever way one can go on to pronounce it. That's the scheme of the entire of the discussion. Northeast Asia or East Asia is the eastern sub-region of the Asian continent, which can be defined in either geographical or pan-ethno-cultural terms. Pan-ethno-culture, that means culturally also it can be defined. And it includes mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Mongolia, North Korea and South Korea. First is China. China is separated by the rest of the world either by some natural boundary or by an artificial boundary in the form of Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is a series of fortifications made of stone, brick, stamped earth, wood and other materials, generally built along an east-to-west line across the historical northern borders of China to protect the Chinese states and empires against the raids and invasions of the various nomadic groups of the Eurasian steppes. Several walls were being built as early as the 7th century BC, and these later joined together and made bigger and stronger. These are the walls that are collectively called by the name of Great Wall of China. Especially famous is the wall built in 220 to 206 BC by King Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Little of that wall remains though. The Great Wall has been rebuilt, maintained and enhanced over various dynasties. The majority of the existing wall is from the Ming dynasty. Geographically, that was the first part, that was artificially. How is it that China is going to be divided from the rest of the world? That is by Great Wall of China. Geographically, China is separated from North Asia by the Amur River and of course from the whole of South Asia with the help of the buffer zone, that is the Tibetan buffer zone. Amur River is in the East Central Asia, formed by the joining of the Shilka and the Argun rivers that flow southeast, forming the border between Russia and China before emptying into the Tsugaru Strait. While China is separated from North Asia by the Amur River, China is also separated from South Asia physiographically by the Pamir Knot. Pamir Knot is the meeting point for many Central Asian mountain ranges, indeed forming a knot. Now the Easterns will go on to recall that it was from Pamir Knot that we went on to begin our journey towards Southwest Asia. So from Pamir, it was Hindu Kush mountains that emerged. These mountains went on to merge into the Armenian Knot. From Pamir Knot, we are again moving eastward because it's a knot. There are going to be a good number of mountain ranges that are going to merge into it, and that's why it looks like forming a knot of sorts. It is the highest plateau of the world, consequently known as the roof of the world. There are three ranges that diverge from Pamir. They are Tian Shan, Kunlun Shan, and the Himalayas. Between the Himalayas and the Kunlun lies the Tibetan Plateau. Kunlun continues further in northeast, which limits the Tarim Basin. So Kunlun goes on to determine one of those boundaries of the Tarim Basin. North of Tarim Basin lies the Tian Shan, and further north of Tian Shan will be the Dzungarian Basin. Dzungarian Basin is bounded in the northeast by the Altai group of mountains. Tian Shan is one of the longest mountain ranges in Central Asia and is a part of Himalayan orogenic belt. Northeast of Tian Shan lies the Altai ranges. It is also going to be called by the name of Altai Tug as well sometimes. Of course, the Altun mountains are different in this case. That is not to be confused with the Altai ranges. Between the Tian Shan and the Altai range is in Mongolia lies the Dzungarian Basin, which you referred to before. Dzungarian region is a region of China in Xinjiang, Uyghur Autonomous Region. It is a low-lying land and it is sort of a door between China and Mongolia with Tarim lowland in the west. So Tarim lies in the west and Dzungarian Basin provides a door between China and Mongolia. East of the Altai ranges, northeast of the Qingling and the Huanghe River lies the Gobi, which is bounded further east by the Great Khingan Mountains. Gobi Desert is a mid-latitude continental desert. Now understand this part, mid-latitude continental desert. Deserts are classified in many ways and this is one type of a desert based on its location. It is the classification not made on the basis of the type of a surface that it goes on to have. So on the basis of the underlying surface, deserts can be sandy deserts, rocky deserts or any one of them. Gobi Desert is classified locationally and it is a mid-latitude continental desert. Mid-latitude means it lies between 45 degree latitude. Continental means it has a continental location. So it is between 45 degree to 50 degree latitudes and it has a continental location, that is, it is far removed away from many marine influences. While most of these hot deserts are going to be very, very close to that of the sea. Its surface is an undulating sea surface as well as barren sheets of rock and stone. So it's a sand sea. That means on the surface lies sand, like the type of a sand that we go to find in the Ladakh region, somewhere near to about Leh and so on, north of Leh. So it has barren sheets of rock. So it is going to be a rocky desert as well as it's going to be a sandy desert from the perspective of the underlying surface that goes on to form it. The lowest plateau lies to the northeast of the Qingling Mountains and south of Gobi. Lowest lies to the northeast of Qingling Mountain and south of Gobi. It is a plateau, lowest is a plateau which is formed by wind-borne fine dust deposited beyond the desert limits and it is the fine loam and is rich in lime. It is traversed by the Huanghe, Huanghe, Adop, Yellow River. That means these are the three names of the same river which going to traverse through it. And because the river is going to traverse through it, and because Loess is going to be yellow in color, it is this region, it is this plateau that is responsible for lending the yellow coloration to the river. Huanghe has been known as the mother of China. It is the second largest river in China after the Yangtze. The river rises in northern China in the Kunlun Mountains in Qinghai province. Northern China in Kunlun Mountains, that's the place where it goes on to originate. The Huanghe originates in the Bayanhe Mountains in Qinghai province of western China. Now, this goes on to be significant. I'll let you know what type of a question can go on to be possibly asked from this topic here. The Huanghe empties into the Bo or the Pohai. Bohai or the Pohai. It's the same name, or it is going to be called as the Yellow Sea. So it is going to be called as Bohai or Pohai Sea, or it is going to be called by the Yellow Sea, near the city of Dongyang in the Shandong province. The Huanghe carries the largest debris of all the rivers in the whole of the world, and the load carried by these rivers is so much that it goes on to block the river itself, and that allows the river to deviate as well. And that is going to be one of these biggest characteristics of the Huanghe river. The question that can possibly frame from Huanghe can go on to be, you can be given a question to answer, that is, consider the following statements about Huanghe river. The first is, it is the largest river in China. The second can be, it originates from the Qinghai province of western China. It originates from the Bayanhe Mountains. It empties into the Gulf of Pohai or the Bohai, and its eastern limit is going to be the Dongyang city in the Shandong province, and the debris, the river is going to be called by the Yellow River in the world. Now you have to point out one or two are correct, two or three are correct, or whatever, maybe three or four of them are correct. The Huanghe drains through North China plains. When we're going to be talking about that Huanghe drains through the North China plains, that is, it is a plain that is formed by the Huanghe river, and indeed it is going to be very, very fertile. The North China plain is also called as the Yellow Plain. It is a large alluvial plain of Eastern Asia. It is built into the Yellow Sea by the deposits of Huanghe, that is the Yellow River, and few other rivers as well, which are comparatively minor rivers of Eastern China. South of Tian Shan, we have talked about so far Tian Shan, and that is how is it that from Tian Shan so many of these mountains go on to be radiating from here, there, and so on. South of Tian Shan lies the Tarim Basin and the Taklamakan. Taklamakan is a desert, and Taklamakan is a desert plateau. Tarim Basin is an intermountain desert basin that lies between the Tian Shan in the north and the Kunlun Shan in the south. So we talked about Kunlun Shan and we moved forward. So it lies between Tian Shan and the Kunlun Shan. And the Tarim Basin is an inland region. It's drained by the Tarim River. The Tarim River is the longest inland river in China, and indeed one of the longest in the whole of the world as well. It is also the principal river in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The Tarim River rises in the Karakoram Range in the extreme northern part of India, and there are two rivers that go on to form the union of it. That means it is formed by the confluence of the two rivers. These two rivers are going to be, one of them Aksu and Shache. Shache is also going to be called by the name of the Yarkand River. Yarkand has been something that has been mentioned in Indian history. Students can go to recall it, connect it, and that has been associated with some type of invasionary status which Babur had, and some of the Central Asian invaders, including all of those medieval rulers, went on to have towards India as well. In the center of the Tarim Basin lies the Loch Nor. Loch Nor happens to be a lake. It is a lake, and it is a former salt lake. It used to be a freshwater lake, but when the Himalayas got uplifted, all the source of moisture for these rivers went on to dry out, and these lakes got themselves transformed into a salt lake. So it's a former salt lake in China which has dried up now. It is located between the Taklamakan and the Kumtag deserts in the southeastern portion of a Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Tonim River and the Shule River, both of them drain themselves into the lake. Thus, Lopnor is hydrologically speaking called as an endorheic formation. That means it is a land-bound. That means it is a region that goes on to be having a convergent drainage. There is a lot of rivers come and drain themselves into this place. That's called as endorheic. It is land-bound and there is no outlet. The lake has dried up due to construction of dams which block the flow of water feeding into the lake system, and only small seasonal lakes and marshes may form in this place. The dried up Lopnor basin is now covered with a salt crust. So it's a layer of a salt that goes on to form the Lopnor. Lopnor has been used by the Chinese as a nuclear testing site. So it is one of those regions which is going to be called also by the name of Pokhran of China, because this is where the Chinese continue to test their nuclear weapons. Lying eastwards and lying towards the east of Tarim Basin is the Turfan Depression. Turfan Depression is a fault trough, and at its lowest point it is 150 meters below the sea level. Thus, it is the lowest elevation in China. South of Tarim Basin is the Kunlun Shan. The Kunlun Shan originates from Pamir and extends itself north and eastward into the Altun Shan. So it's not Altai, it's Altun Shan, Altun Tag. These are the names of the mountains that are going to be given locally in China. Altun Shan further extends eastward into the Nanshan and even further east as a Qingling Mountains. Between Altun Shan and Nanshan lies the Saidam Basin. That is one of those type of basins, and the whole of the region has many basins like a Tarim Basin, like Saidam Basin, like the Tibetan Basin, and so on. South of Kunlun lies the Tibetan Plateau, which is bounded by the Himalayas further south. The Tibetan Plateau is an intermountain plateau. Intermountain means which is between two mountains. So it goes into lie in between these two mountains. It is the largest and the highest plateau in the whole of the world. Tibet has large number of lakes, which has now a huge water reservoir and is going to be the source of many rivers. Tibetan Plateau is now a geopolitical hotspot on account of its ability to control world's water resources and gives China an absolute advantage. And it is the advantage that China relishes, China enjoys it now in trying to control the geopolitics of the whole of the world. East of the Tibetan highlands lies, is called a Changjiang as well. Of course, it is the longest river in China. It rises in the Tibetan highlands and drains East China Sea near Shanghai. So there was one city that was going to be near to that of Wangzhou, Tongjiang, and this is going to be Shanghai. Now, both of these names are significant because you may be given a place to match, that is, which city is going to be on which of these rivers. The Yangtze forms the middle Yangtze Basin and the lower Yangtze Basin. It's on Yangtze that there are 3 Gorges Dams which have been constructed. 3 Gorges Dam is the largest ever multi-purpose project that has been conceived by the human beings. There is no project, there is no multi-purpose project that is going to be as large as the Yangtze Kian in terms of its dimension, in terms of the amount of water that goes into flow, in terms of the grandeur, in terms of the amount of tidal power that is going to be generated. Yangtze Kiang has branded China, and it has branded China in the manner that China is now one of the greatest dam builders in the whole of the world. But ask any ecologists and they will go to say that it is a disaster in making. Southeast of China. Southeast of China lies the Yunnan Plateau and the Xizang River. It's not Yangtze Kiang, Xizang River. Yunnan Plateau is a highland plateau of China east of the Tibetan region. It is famous for non-ferrous minerals, phosphorus, zinc, lead, copper and tin. The Xizang River, also called the Xizang River or the Xinjiang River, Xinjiang River, not Xinjiang, not Xinjiang, it's Xinjiang River, is a major southern river. It rises in Yunnan province and flows through the Guangxi Zhuang, that is Guangxi Chuang, as we're going to be calling it, before draining itself into the South China Sea. That was the overall makeup, geographical makeup of China. Now, this geographical makeup may not be so significant from the perspective of a current affairs topic, but it is going to be significant because if anything happens in China, inside China, then it is these topics that are going to be asked to you, and they will start asking you in such a manner. In the sense that is why is it that this region is significant, why this region is not going to be significant as well. Now, to conclude, we can go to say that China goes into comprise of many mountain ranges, and to sum it up, between Kunlun Shan and Tian Shan lies the Tarim Basin. Between the Nanshan and that of the Tian Shan lies the Tufan Depression. Between the Altun Shan and that of the Nanshan lies the Saidam Basin. Between the Kunlun Shan and that of the Himalayan mountains lies the Tibetan region. Between the Qingling Mountains and that of the Eastern Yunnan Plateau lies the Red Basin. Between the Tian Shan and that of Altai Mountains lies the Zungarian Basin. And of course, we have talked about the Tufan Depression in this case. Now, that goes into one of them, and then towards the eastern portion of it lies the Great Khingan Mountains, that limits the eastern portion of the Gobi Desert. Now, the students are going to be always asked about that which are the more important intermountain plateaus in the region. For example, there are so many of them. Zungarian Basin is one of them, Tarim Basin is one of them, Tufan Depression is one other of them, and Tufan Depression all in all, even if you're going to leave it, Saidam Basin is going to be another of them, and not to speak of the Tibetan Plateau. So there are going to be a lot of mountains in this place, we have talked about it. Similarly, there are going to be many plains as well. For example, that is the North China Plain, then the Central China Plains, and so on. So a series of plains that goes into Manchurian Plains, North China Plain, Middle Yangtze Plain, Lower Yangtze Plain, as well as Red Basin. And it goes on to include many plateaus as well. Some of them, most of them, going to be intermountain plateaus. That goes on to include Tarim Basin, Tibetan Plateau, Gobi Plateau, Yunnan Plateau, etc. And it is these plateaus that are significant from the perspective of water politics. Other than this physiographic aspect, China is the richest region in the world from the perspective of the rivers, from the point of view of rivers. All the rivers of China flow from west to east, as the general slope of the land is from west to east. The Amur, Wangho, Yangtze-Kiang, Sikiang River, the Pearl River in the lower reaches, the Red River, Mekong, all of them go on to flow from west to east, or even southeast as well. Other than that, there are going to be a lot of water bodies that surround China, and that includes the Sea of Japan or the East Sea. Sea of Japan is an arm of Pacific Ocean. It lies between the Japan on the east and the Asian mainland on the west. Part of it is the Gulf of Po Hai. It is the Gulf of Po Hai, and that Wangho River drains into it. Second is the Yellow Sea or the West Sea. Yellow Sea is located between China and Korea. It is also the name given to the northern part of the East China Sea, which is the marginal sea of the Pacific Ocean. Its name comes from the sand particles from the Gobi Desert, desert sandstorms, which turns the surface of the water golden and yellow, and that is a part of it. The third is the East China Sea. East China Sea is an arm of the Pacific Ocean located off the eastern coast of Asia, of course towards the east of China. The sea is bounded by the Kyushu-Ryukyu Islands and by Taiwan and the Taiwan Strait. It merges with the Yellow Sea on the northwest. Then the third is the Taiwan Strait. It's a shallow channel. Taiwan Strait is a shallow channel separating the province of Fujian in the southeastern China from the island of Taiwan. The strait connects South China Sea in the southwest with East China Sea. South China Sea is a major body of water within the Southeast Asian region. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia and Singapore have integral rivers that flow into the South China Sea. South China Sea at present a hotbed of international politics, particularly on account of petroleum deposits. In South China Sea, it is the Spratly and the Parcel Islands that are the bone of contention. And the Spratly and Parcel Islands are actually a group of atolls claimed by many countries for oil deposits. It is some degree of a controversy that is going to be in South China Sea that goes on to make the region very, very, very significant. Having known China, it's pertinent that one knows about the various types of issues that are affecting East Asia and China particularly. One of these issues is the Uyghurs issue. The Xinjiang is officially designated as an autonomous region within China, like Tibet to its south, and is the home of Uyghurs. The Uyghurs are Muslims. They regard themselves as culturally and ethnically close to Central Asian countries and say that they form a nation. When we go on to say that they form a nation, it means that a nation is a group of people who have a sense of bonding based on their past history, based on their region, based on their culture, based on their language, based on their faith. So Uyghurs go on to say that they are a nation. That's not a state. A state is a political unit. A nation is an emotional unit. The region's economy has for centuries revolved around agriculture and trade at towns such as Kashgar, which incidentally is one of the nodal points of thriving as a hub along the famous Silk Route is now the beginning and nodal point for the CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. In the early part of the 20th century, the Uyghurs briefly declared independence. The region was brought under the complete control of the Communist China in 1949. The Uyghurs have certain grievances. The central government policies have gradually curtailed the Uyghurs' religious, commercial and cultural activities. China is accused of intensifying a crackdown after street protests in Xinjiang in the 1990s and again in the run-up to the Beijing Olympics in 2008. This is one of these issues. And there can always be a question that can be asked on the Uyghurs. Uyghurs are always going to be raising their head. For example, just some time back, the Chinese went on to ban the recitation of a Quran and the 5 times namaz that the people used to offer in this place, and also the use of the loudspeakers for the purpose of reciting namaz. Second is the Tibetan water geopolitics. That's an issue in China. China has started using rivers as a weapon, a deadly and a lethal weapon. In Tibet, China is in control of water flowing into the Indian subcontinent in Southeast Asia. Therefore, it has control over the Indus and its tributaries as well as Brahmaputra and its tributaries that is in China. Chinese strategy is to construct dams over the river so that it can regularize the flow of water as per its own will and use it as a weapon to bargain for it to trouble the countries. The other strategies involve creating a natural dam by blasting the river valley of the rivers and then demolishing it to flood Indian territories without the danger of being blamed legally or logically. Consequently, they have done it so with respect to one of the rivers, Parichu River, that is one of the tributaries of Satluj. India has a lot of concern with respect to Tibetan rivers flowing into the territory. China has blocked a tributary of Brahmaputra as part of a major hydroelectric project whose construction began in 2014. The Brahmaputra in its upper reaches is called as a Yarlung Zangbo after it originates from the Angse Glacier in western Tibet, southeast of Mount Kailash and Mansarovar Lake. The blocking is ostensibly for rerouting the Yarlung Zangbo, and this is going to be used as one of the ploys by the China to hold water, release it as the Chinese want to release it. So geopolitically, what the Chinese will go on to do is that when India is in floods, it will going to release all the waters. Geopolitically, when India is going to be suffering from water scarcity, then China will go on to hold all the waters. So India will be under a deep stress to negotiate with China on whatever terms that the Chinese going to offer to them. Chinese are very adept in these things. The third is the South China Sea dispute. The South China Sea is one such essential waterway made more important by the value of the sea's fisheries and subsea resources such as natural gas. But addressing the risk of its near seas means tackling the time-consuming and costly project of building, training and deploying a stronger blue water navy while also establishing a greater maritime buffer along the Chinese coastline. That is the maritime buffer that will not going to affect China at all and China's assets as well. China's assertion of ownership and control in the South China Sea, coupled with the liberal interpretations of its rights within its claimed exclusive economic zone, gives Beijing at least a modicum of greater security. With neighbors unable or unwilling to directly challenge Chinese concrete actions in the sea, and the United States hesitant to use force to halt Chinese expansion, Beijing is reshaping the status quo unimpeded. China claims almost the entire South China Sea through a 9-dashed line, which extends into other countries. Other countries' exclusive economic zone, that is 200 nautical miles for purpose of exploitation, and 15 million barrels of oil is the transit movement through the Sea Delhi. Fears of conflict have risen after the 2012 standoff between China and Philippines at Scarborough Shoal. China has now been building runways, army facilities and reclaimed reefs in the Spratly Islands. The South China Sea is important from a variety of angles. On a strategic level, it's about controlling the world's busiest shipping route. China is laying claim to 90% of South China Sea. Second is, about half of the world's commercial shipping passes through the area, and most of the countries are worrying if anything goes wrong, it will go to cripple their economy. Of course, going by the intent of the Chinese, it is likely to happen, and it will going to happen, the Chinese will go to arm twist all of these countries. Third is, on a geological level, it is about some of the world's most prospective seabed oil and gas deposits. And it is very rich indeed. On a military level, it's about China's avid desire to push the US Navy away from its coast. Beijing craves uncontested domain over its maritime approaches. The US 7th Fleet has been unchallenged ruler of the Pacific since World War II, and a fast-rising China is now a real challenge of sorts in this case. The fifth is, and on the level of a global governance, it's about whether there are any rules governing countries or whether a country can get its way through the use of force or not. However, China's position in Pacific vis-a-vis Indian position in Indian Ocean is not as strong geographically, which of course China is tiding over by offense and diplomacy, both of them. That's the third issue. The fourth issue is the new Silk Route. China's proposed Silk Route would uplink connectivity within China to the region and beyond, and also give boost to Chinese industry and investment in different parts of the world. The new Silk Route goes on to comprise some 20-odd countries, nearly 20 countries: China, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania, Czech Republic, Germany, Netherlands, Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Kenya over the 3 continents are part of the proposed project. And the number is likely to go up. It has to go up also. Lastly, that is, in this case, it will go to allow China to develop parallel trading network and a huge over land and maritime of Asia and running into Europe that will challenge the ones by a US-led West. It will go on to establish China as one of the most supreme power in the whole of the region. So that has been one of the countries, China, its geographical personality and the issues that are going to be confronting China. Second is Korea, the Korean Peninsula. The Korean Peninsula is in news for a variety of reasons. Korean Peninsula consists of North Korea and South Korea. Unlike Japan or the North Korean province of China, the Korean Peninsula is geologically stable. There are no active volcanoes apart from Baekdu Mountain on the border between the North Korea and China, and which were most recently active up till almost about 1903. and there have been no strong earthquakes that also affected the whole of the region. So by and large, it's a stable region. North Korea is located in East Asia and northern part of the Korean Peninsula. It shares a border with 3 countries: China along the Upnok River, Russia along the Tumen River, and South Korea along the Korean demilitarized zone. For most part, the plains in North Korea are small, and the most extensive of these plains go on to be Pyongyang and the Cheryong plains, each covering about 500 square kilometers of soils. The one place in this region that has been news has been a village inside the 4-kilometer demilitarized zone of North and South Korea, within which sits the village of Panmunjom, otherwise known as the tensest place on the planet. Panmunjom is where North Korea and South Korea, both of them, went on to held their discussions. Inside that village is a building called as the Peace House, where for the first time in more than 2 years, officials from North Korea and South Korea sat down to have a face-to-face conversation. The second part of the Korean Peninsula is South Korea. South Korea is the only country with a land border to North Korea lying to the north. South Korea is mostly surrounded by water and has extensive coastline along the 3 seas. To the west is the Yellow Sea, to the south is East China Sea, and to the east is the Sea of Japan. The largest island, Jeju-do, lies off the southwest corner of the peninsula. South Korea has no extensive plains. Its lowlands are the product of mountain erosion. Approximately 30% of the area of South Korea consists of lowlands, with the rest consisting of uplands and mountains. The great majority of the lowland area lies along the coast, particularly the west coast, and along the major rivers. Third is Japan. Japan is in news for any reason. Sometimes when the Chinese go on to block the sales of REE, rare earth elements, Japan is in news. Sometimes when it goes on to get affected by tsunami, Japan is in news. Sometimes when the Japanese go on to make a decision to lend a project to India, almost at virtual no interest, Japan is in news. Sometimes one of its industrial zones goes on to get elevated to produce something exceptional, extraordinary and unique. Japan is in news. And Japan is always going to be in news right now because it's part of APEC, it's part of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, it's part of Quad right now. And Japan is always going to be news vis-a-vis India, largely because India now has started sharing a special relationship with Japan. Japan is a nation state in East Asia, and perhaps only the second nation state, and only second or third nation state. That is, it's a state, that means it has a political unit. It's a nation because it's a collection of people who have the same sense of unity. So Japan is a nation state in East Asia. Located in the Pacific Ocean, it lies off the eastern coast of the Asian mainland and stretches from the Sea of Okhotsk in the north to the East China Sea and China in the southwest. It has something like some 6,852 islands extending along the Pacific coast from north to south. And most of these islands go on to be Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu. That is the way that these are going to be arranged. Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu. Now this is how the students need to know it as well. The Ryukyu Islands, which includes Okinawa, are a chain to the south of Kyushu, and together they are often known as the Japanese archipelago. The islands of Japan are located in the volcanic zone in the Pacific Ring of Fire. That is a zone which is always going to be getting affected by earthquakes, always going to be affected by volcanoes. Japan has 108 active volcanoes. During the 20th century, several new volcanoes emerged. Destructive earthquakes, often resulting in tsunami, occur several times each century, and Japan is substantially prone to earthquakes, tsunami and volcanoes due to its location along the Pacific Ring of Fire. And imagine that despite being affected by all the type of natural disasters, one can imagine the one thing appreciable about the Japanese people is their character. And when we are going to be talking about their character, it essentially means that taking a clue from the last tsunami, even in the extreme of the conditions, When all the malls were abundant, all the shopping complexes were abundant, there was not single instance of theft that was reported from Japan. Not even a single incidence of unnecessary honking that was reported from Japan. It's a trait and it's a character that needs to be saluted. Indians were also like that prior to the arrival of the British in India, and Indians are completely opposite of what they used to be some time back and what they are now. Of course, that's no geography at all. So, coming on to the islands, one of them is Hokkaido. Hokkaido was formerly called by the name of Yezo Islands, and formerly Yezo, northernmost and second-most island of the Japanese archipelago, which is situated within the Sea of Japan, East Sea, and to the west, and the Sea of Okhotsk to the north, with the Pacific line to the east. Literally, it is going to be called as Northern Sea Circuit. It is the second largest island of Japan and the largest of the northernmost prefecture. The Tsugaru Strait separates Hokkaido from Honshu. That means between the southern island, that is Honshu, it is Tsugaru Strait that goes on to separate it. The two islands across the Tsugaru Straits are connected by the undersea railway that is called the Shikken Tunnel, which is the world's longest railway tunnel. It's 53.6 kilometers. The largest city on Hokkaido is its capital Sapporo, which is also only ordnance designated city, which is one of the most important ordnance designated city in the whole of the world. One of the most important of it. Something like some 43 kilometers north of Hokkaido lies the Sakhalin Islands. Sakhalin Islands is in news most of the time because it was a region that was in dispute between Russia and Japan. And that is where lies Sakhalin. Sakhalin is now part of Russian territory, and Russia has almost taken it. Maybe it's a Russian island itself, but who knows? But then that has been an island that has been in dispute. To the east of Sakhalin lies the disputed Kuril Islands as well. Second is the Honshu Islands or the Hondo Islands. Honshu is the largest Japanese island called as a Tahir mainland. It is bounded in the north by the Tsugaru Strait, which we talked about, which separates it from Hokkaido Islands, and on the east by the Pacific Ocean, on the south by the Inland Sea, and the Taiwan Strait, which separates it from Shikoku and Kyushu. Honshu is the largest and the most populous island of Japan, located south of the Hokkaido, as we talked about, across the state of Tsugaru, and north of Shikoku, across the Inland Sea. The island separates the Sea of Japan, which lies to the north and west from the North Pacific Ocean. Most of Japan's industry is located in a belt running along Honshu's southern coast that goes on to include Tokyo to Kyoto, Osaka, Nagoya, Kobe, and Hiroshima. By contrast, the economy along the southwestern sea of Japan coast is largely based on fishing and agriculture. So there are going to be two different coasts which are going to be known for two different type of economies. That is, the northwestern coast known differently, and the southeastern coast is going to be known for its completely different type of economy. The Fuji Mountain or the Fujiyama, also called as the Fujisan, is a dominant volcano of Japan in southern Honshu Islands, which is the highest mountain in Japan. It is a symbol of Japan because it is exceptionally symmetrical. It's an exceptionally symmetrical cone. It's a composite cone. That means one of the layers is made of lava, another is going to be made of the other particle. And it is the highest peak of Japan, is a well-known symbol of Japan. Its climate is very cold due to its altitude, and the cone is snow-covered for several months of the year. Shikoku is the smallest of the four islands of Japan, which lies towards the south of the islands of Honshu and east of the island of Kyushu between the Inland Sea and the Pacific Ocean, and is most densely populated Japanese island. Kyushu is one of these islands that is mountainous and is Japan's most active volcano. Mount Aso at 1591 meters is on Kyushu, and it is one of the most active volcanoes in Japan. There are many other signs of tectonic activity, including numerous areas of hot springs in Japan. The most famous of these are Beppo on the eastern shore and, of course, Mount Aso in central Kyushu. The island is separated from Honshu by the, as we talked about, Taiwan Strait, and it is linked to the larger island of Honshu by the Taiwan Tunnel, which carries both the Sanyo and the Shinkansen trains to Kyushu. Other than Japan, the last part of East Asia is going to be Taiwan. Taiwan is always in news because Taiwan has been used by some of these countries, maybe superpowers like by USA and sometimes also by India. That is, they keep on raising the Taiwan issue, essentially as a ploy to untwist China, if they can untwist China. China, in due course of time, will going to become strong enough to such an extent that Taiwan won't be able to do anything at all. The island lies some 180 kilometers from the southeastern coast of mainland China across the Taiwan Strait. The East China Sea to the north and the Philippine Sea to the east, the Bashi Channel and of the Luzon Strait directly to the south, and South China Sea to the southwest shapes its entire of the shape that is like a sweet potato. It's like a sweet potato. That the shape is going to be like that of a sweet potato. The island is characterized by the contrast between eastern two-thirds consisting mostly of rugged mountains running in 5 ranges from the northern to the southern tip of the islands, and the flat to gently rolling Chainan plains to the west, and that is where Taiwanese main population lies. Taiwan is in the process of becoming one of these aviation hubs. It is offering a lot of films and a lot of soups to the airlines of the world, essentially for the purpose of attracting them. The advantage that Taiwan will going to have is that from Taiwan one can go to fly across to the whole of the Pacific. It can going to become a one-stop solution to all of the flights taking place towards the Pacific Ocean, that means towards United States, Canada, as well as towards South America. One question that can be framed with respect to Taiwan is the location of Taiwan and its hub, and also with respect to current affairs, that is going to be how is it that Taiwan and China are going to be closely linked with each other, and in what way is it that they are going to be linked to each other also. That is going to be one component of it. This was about East Asia.